We have 2 hummingbird feeders at our house, one in the front and one in the back. A pair of Anna hummingbirds feed at them regularly. This is Buzzy, the female, and this is Buzz-Off, the male. Buzz-Off will chase anyone or anything that's near his feeder. And Buzzy's pretty sweet. You just hear her buzz around the feeders. Then I noticed Buzzy wouldn't let Buzz-Off feed at the front feeder. On January 31st, I went out on our front patio where the first bit of morning sun was beaming, and I stood in it to get warm. Buzzy, who was used to seeing me, flew very close to my head and was buzzing near my ear. She seemed very agitated and had never reacted to me like that before. I moved from the sunny spot and she flew away. I walked back in the sunshine and she buzzed me again. As I looked around to see why she was buzzing me, there in the bush, I saw a tiny little hummingbird nest. I take a quick peek inside and there's 1 egg. A few days later I look inside and there's 2, and I named them Pip and Squeek. It just so happens that that bush is just outside one of our rooms. So I set up my tripod and get my camera set to try and record. I'm fascinated at the nest shape and size. It's amazing how she camouflaged the nest with her colors, and sometimes the light would make it appear like the nest was part of her body. She made the nest out of dandelion fluff, leaf bits, willow fluff, her own feathers, soft plant pieces. We even saw bits of paint off of the house. She binded the nest with spider web. I watched the nest every day as she incubated the eggs. There were nice days and some very cold, rainy days, and she calmly stayed on the nest. The eggs must have hatched on February 20th, during a very cold, windy, rainy storm. So it took about 21 days for the eggs to hatch. Here they are about 3 days old. She feeds them about every 10 to 20 minutes. Their beaks are barely at the rim of the nest. I tried to stay away from the nest as much as possible. I was told other birds are watching, and bringing attention to the area could bring predators that could cause harm. Ants can be harmful. Here, Buzzy uses it for an extra snack. I couldn't resist. I took a quick photo at about 6 days old. As the days passed, the leaves and the flowers on the bush have blossomed, making more shade from the sun and giving more of protection. She built the nest on a light branch so it couldn't hold a climbing predator like a rat, a cat, a raccoon, a squirrel. Other predators would be a snake, large spiders, and large lizard. Crows are bad too. She feeds them ants, spiders, gnats, mosquitoes, any flying insects she can catch. She also collects nectar and pollen for them. No pin feathers yet, and their eyes are still closed. So this means they're still cold-blooded and they need Buzzy to protect them from the weather. When watching her, I noticed that she made sure both chicks were fed. Their heads are over the rim of the nest now. They open their beaks when they hear their mother nearby, but they don't make a sound. is 1 week old here. Squeek is still a little bit smaller. Here they're 2 weeks old. When they start to get their pin feathers, they start to go through a metamorphosis where they start to become warm-blooded. Buzzy stays away from the nest longer, and she feeds them every maybe 30 to 40 minutes now. At 6 weeks old, Buzzy stops sitting on the nest at night, and this can be very concerning if you're not familiar with the transition that's going on. The first night she stopped sitting on the nest, I was very alarmed. I thought something had happened to Buzzy and the chicks were going to freeze to death. I found out that this is normal. With their pin feathers, they're able to maintain their body temperature. So Buzzy rarely sits on the nest, but she's right on time every morning to feed them. During the noon hour, the sun beats directly down on the nest, and at this time I noticed Buzzy did something unusual. She was shading the nest with her body and tail. She put one foot to one side of the nest and the other foot on the other, and she spread her wings and her tail to make a tent-like shade. And she did this from noon till about 2 in the afternoon. After 2 o'clock, the sun moved over to the other side of the house, creating more shade for the chicks. There would be the occasional morning checks just to see if everything was okay. On this morning, we noticed ants crawling all over the nest and all over Pip. Mom to the rescue, she picks the ants and feeds them to the chicks a little later. I read that ants can be the cause for a chick to jump out of the nest before its time. She stays away longer, but she's very aware of what they need. They are larger and their heads are above the nest. The yellow blossoms attract a lot of bees, but they don't seem to bother the chicks. They're getting so big they're stretching out the nest. We became concerned the nest may not be stable with the growing size and weight of the chicks. When we weren't looking, Buzzy would reinforce the nest with spider webs. Here's the bottom of the nest. She even used the flowers to reinforce and stabilize the nest. Here they're laying on their sides for an afternoon siesta. The tails are still pin feathers. They seem to be growing so fast it seems they'll be flying any day now. On this early morning, I saw what I thought was Buzzy feeding the chicks, but it was actually Pip testing the wings. Ants continue to bother. They spend a lot of time preening and testing their wings. When all was calm, the weather suddenly changed. There was an unexpected 3 a.m. pouring rain with a lot of wind. At first light, the branches were all rearranged and the nest could not be found. I went out to try to find the nest. The nest was sideways and Pip and Squeek were clinging to the nest. The bush was laying on its side, so we went out and propped it back up. It was extreme weather to be out in. They both seemed exhausted. Buzzy finally arrived with some breakfast. After a storm like that, the little chicks really needed this nourishment. I had read that if you wanted to help a mother hummer collect insects, set an open tomato or an orange somewhere on the ground near the nest, and that would attract flies. It would make it easier for her to catch insects to feed to the chicks. Another downpour and Buzzy comes to the rescue. She shields them with her body, wings, and tail. When I watched her shielding the chicks, I wondered why she didn't do this during the night when it was pouring rain. We didn't see Buzzy till first light. And then reading up a little bit more, I find that when a hummingbird sleeps, they go through a torpid state, a state of hibernation. They can't move till their body temperature rises. As soon as the rain lightens, she leaves. When the sun comes out, it's time for exercise and preening. Buzzy's doing repairs on the nest. The tail feathers are still pinned, so they won't be flying that day. It's amazing how much they grow in one day. The nest barely keeps them contained. You can see how it's leaning to one side. Squeek's tail feathers are looking developed. At the time, I didn't know that this was the last time I was going to see them in the nest together. Buzzy discovers Pip is gone, and Squeek seems a little confused. She's not taking food from Buzzy right now, and this is confusing Buzzy.